with me in answering these questions. Ahead of time, just to let you know, these are just for polling responses. Your name and likeliness won't be out there. We are just asking these questions so we can get a better understanding of the field of coaching and what areas we can look to improve or further develop ourselves in. All right, first question. This all pertains to sportsmanship, gamesmanship, and diversity. And the first question is sportsmanship an important part of your coaching philosophy? And if so, can you give an example as to why?
Yeah, of course. I mean, sportsmanship, you play the game the right way, you do the best you can, because sports are games. Ultimately, we're teaching the game of life. There's a lot of things that we're trying to learn in the process that'll help younger individuals become better members of society, similar to the way that you and I have as effective members of society now. So the games are fun, the games are great, but ultimately it's about learning how to be competitive and win graciously and take defeat in the right way. So sportsmanship, yes, very important. It's a major life skill, but also when you're playing, it's wrong to run it up, it's wrong to rub it in people's faces. So yes, you want to win and you want to do it the right way. You want to have fun, but you also want to do that the right way too.
Perfect. Win with class, so it was a great way. Awesome. So the second one, could you recall one event that some sign of sportsmanship stood out for you, a specific instance where maybe you saw a player? I know you coach football and tennis. Any specific instances or experiences stand out to you in terms of sportsmanship?
Yeah, I mean, I could think a lot. I mean, since I've been working, I've coached football, tennis, baseball, track, basketball. I've done it all.
Yeah.
So one thing that majorly stands out for me, because it's a sport that I wasn't totally used to, is tennis. I mean, there's no officials. You're calling your own lines.
Game of sportsmanship.
If it's on your side and you disagree, it's still the person whose side the ball landed on, whose call it is. And that's tough, and it's very tough to encourage players to, one, do the best they can, two, accept the other person's judgment, and three, there's no officials. You got to work it out with the other teenage individual that's on the court. So that majorly stands out. Track was new to me too. It's not something I participated in, but you go to all these meets with the same kids running different events, and they're all rooting for each other, and so that's a different aspect, because we were used to football where you only get to see them once a year.
Yeah.
Now they're seeing them 6 times a year. So the different levels of sportsmanship vary between sports, but it was cool to see 2 sports that I didn't play and how that kind of interacts, because it was wildly different than what I played in.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I mean, tennis, you need to have sportsmanship in a whole for the system to work, so that's awesome. Third question. Have you ever had issues where a player was reprimanded for unsportsmanlike conduct, whether it's during a practice or in a game? I think particular, I'm sure you've had that happen in a football game. Do you have any explanation as to why it happened or what they did?
Yeah, got one in football that comes to mind. Had one kid on the other team pushed our guy, and one of my other guys pushes him back. Only my guy gets the flag, but whether both sides were wrong or not, you're still wrong for pushing him. So
Absolutely.
There's that. I did have an issue tennis a couple of years back too, where a parent on the other team might have said something to one of my players while they're playing, which is wrong. But another one of my players might have yelled back at the parent to not do that, in a different sense of words. So you can't talk to parents, just like how parents can't talk to players. I mean, that's one of the main rules of coaching, is you deal with your own guys, and you don't deal with the other team's players or parents unless it's in a wildly positive way. So yeah, there's been some issues. I've thrown kids out of practice. It's happened.
Okay, and that kind of leads into the next question. This one sounds similar to 3, but it does go in a little bit more in depth onto how you dealt with it personally. Have you dealt with unsportsmanlike issues on your teams? And if so, what were your consequences and penalties that you dealt with? I know you said you had a player excused from practice. Does anything else stand out to you in particular?
I mean, yeah, there's, if you're not doing the right stuff in practice, you can leave practice. Sports is a privilege, and being on the field, participating, it's you don't have the right to play. You are participating in it, so you should do it the right way. And if you're not learning the life skills along the way through the sport, you shouldn't be out there. So There's been occasions where I've asked players to leave and go home, or wait in the locker room for the ride to show up. The player I referenced with football, where he got that 15-yard penalty at the end of the game, which ended the game for us. We couldn't come back after that. We've had some consequences where, as a team, we are going to run together. That player might have been the source of the issue, but the player who got pushed before that probably got pushed for a reason. And as a team, we're going to take that consequence together. And as the player who got the penalty, the whole team's running because of you.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those things where you messed up and it hurt a lot of people, so you're learning that again so that you don't have to do that in the future. The one with tennis, I had to talk to the kid. I get it. You're defending your teammate, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So, there were some consequences we dealt with there, but, different levels of consequences for different situations.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. This next one, we talked about this briefly before, term gamesmanship. I know we used the Bill Belichick example and Mike Vrabel example.
Sure.
And the material that we covered for this specific class that this interview is derived from, we did a video of, I'm sure you've seen the play before, where they snap the ball on a silent count and they go, "Coach, it's the wrong ball." They walk to the sidelines and then run up it and score. That's a perfect example of what gamesmanship would be. While it's not with outside the bounds of the rules, it is legal. It's underhand. Have you had any sort of familiarity with it? That the one question 5 was to ask if you're familiar with it. Now question 6 wants to know, have you ever used it? Could you give an example if you have?
Well, gamesmanship, I'm good with it to a degree. If you're playing within the rules, you're not trying to, make another team look bad or anything like that. If you're doing everything the right way and you're running a trick play, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You as the coach needs to, one, be prepared for anything that can happen within the rules as well. So I will say that one thing that I do specifically, which is totally within the rules, it's just something that's very uncommon in a football game, is I run the swinging gate.
Yeah.
And the way the day and age that we're in, everything that I do is on camera, so the next week they can see it, the next year they can be prepared for it. But technically, I have the right amount of players on the line, I have the right amount of eligible receivers, and I'm running eligible plays. Am I going to do that if we're up by 30 points? Never. But in a game where timeouts are critical and the difference between getting 1 point or 2 points is me knowing the rules, my players being prepared and being everything within the rules. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with good coaching and being a knowledgeable coach and making sure your players are prepared because inside the rules. I hate the play you mentioned. I don't like that one. That's
fair.
Deceptive. But I have no problem with double passes and reverses and, corner blitzes. They're uncommon, but very strategic and a part of coaching tactics.
Now, and I like that you mentioned that specific play as something that you personally, would you consider that forms of gamesmanship? Would you consider that cheating?
Well,
or unethical, rather?
No, I don't consider it cheating.
Unethical?
Because it's within the rules. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is, am I prepared at all times for another team to do that against me? Yes. Am I prepared for some other team to say that's the wrong ball, and will I be screaming from the sideline, trick play, go get him? Absolutely. I know the rules. I'm prepared. And if another coach knows the rules, good for you. It's my job to stop it. But time and place. If it's 30-0, don't do it.
That makes sense. In this particular instance, that play took place from what I perceive to be a youth football game, where it's not teaching them anything. That's why
there's no need to in youth sports. It's about the
okay.
fundamentals. Do it at the higher levels where people are supposed to know the difference.
So, and just to finish off question 7, obviously you don't believe it's cheating. You mentioned that you're very knowledgeable in the rules, and any coach can do it. It's just based off their preparation process. So you wouldn't say that it's unethical to do it because it is
not all the time.
Depending on level. So in that instance, youth football, you would say unethical?
Use it, don't abuse it.
That makes sense, and that's fair. And I love how you mentioned the score advantage. If you're up 30, probably unethical.
Not a time to do it.
If it's a tied game, you're looking to get ahead for a big win.
As long as not that play, I would never use that play. But Would I get a little tricky with it?
A little
Sure,
gamesmanship?
of course.
Absolutely. Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Got a few more here for you, Coach.
Sure.
This is going to start blending in more into diversity and just kind of how you handle diversity within your programs. And the question reads, do you utilize a positive strategy regarding diversity on your teams, whether that be religion, gender, race, economics, and so on? If you do, could you name one strategy that you do use?
I don't use strategies to recognize or unrecognize diversity. As a public high school teacher, it's nice to have the code of conduct where, hey guys, we're doing a school-related extracurricular activity. We're still abiding by the code of conduct. Yes, we still have our team rules as well, and you know we're not making diversity well known. We're just not punishing or recognizing in a negative way diversity. Like we have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur every football season, and if there's a student whose religion is Judaism, okay, that's fine. You got to celebrate that and with your family, do what you got to do, and you're not going to make practice. Nobody's holding that against you. And that's the idea that we say. Why isn't so and so at practice? They're recognizing a holiday. Okay, and that's something that we're totally okay with. We're accepting of it. We're not going to go around and say, let's get everybody of this religion out here. Let's get everybody of this gender out here. We're not trying to replace sports with diversity. We're just trying to be accepting in sports of diversity.
That makes a lot of sense. So regarding that answer, you obviously you acknowledge and accept diversity takes place, and that's perfect. Got it. Only a few more here. The next one is, have you dealt with any diversity issues on the programs that you coach, such as a player not accepting one's race, background, or gender identification, so on and so forth?
It's a weird time to be alive, to say the least, as far as some of these topics are going, because there's a lot of gray area. I don't feel like a lot of the issues that come across as far as diversity in any way, shape, or form are intentional. They're more misinformed mistakes where, if there's a student who's, transitioning, it's not everybody's going to be able to recognize it. And it's not really your initial reaction, it's your second reaction to it. Where if you say, hey, ma'am, and it's not a man, I apologize, I didn't mean it, don't take that the wrong way, I'll get it right in the future. That's fair. If they're honest mistakes, you're acting in good faith, no problem. But yeah, those mistakes, they'll come up once in a while where it's kind of unfortunate because you're trying to just play games. You're trying to coach and have a good time. But yeah, sometimes somebody says the wrong thing. I can remember in tennis, there was a really good, I believe he was a Colombian tennis player, and every time he got fired up, he yelled "Vamos." And then one of my players who was not of Spanish descent yells "Vamos." And is it intentional to make fun of that kid? No. It was to be like, hey, I'm fired up too, and he was recognizing, hey, that kid's good and he's doing this, I want to do what he's doing. And if that kid gets offended by it, hey, I'm not trying to, make you feel bad, I'm not making fun of you. I want to copy you because you're doing a good job. It's kind of one of those things where it just it's a gray area that can be easily misunderstood. And it's not about the initial reaction of, why would you say that? It's more of a, dude, are you making fun of me? No, I'm not. I'm trying to praise you a little bit. Oh, okay. It's the second reaction.
No, that makes sense to me. So have you dealt with any specific issues where a member of your program stepped over that line and wandered past that gray area to where it seemed very obvious their intention was to offend or harm?
No. I mean, have they offended or harmed unintentionally? Probably. That situation I just mentioned with the student on my team yelling "Vamos," was that kid offended? Sure. Did he say something to his coach to say to me? Sure. Did I have to talk to that kid? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Were his parents there watching and they got annoyed because they thought that my guy was making fun of him? Sure. So that's something that was addressed. I can't remember anything that was specifically done intentionally to harm.
Mm-hmm.
But, it happens once in a while, and it's mostly misunderstanding stuff.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you addressed that specific player in that situation, and I'm sure you found an appropriate outcome.
Yeah.
And then last question for you. Do you personally address diversity or acceptance during the preseason? And do you believe it's a necessary element within your responsibilities as a coach to address and educate your players on? Now, I can speak, me and you coach within the same district, so I know we have our district-wide athletics meeting per the season.
Yep.
Do you do anything beyond that, address acceptance in your preseason personally?
No, I mean, the AD kind of sets the tone,
Mm-hmm.
and then it comes our job as the coaches to carry on the path that they want seen. And, my take on it is I don't want to have to address this issue for a negative reason. So guys, we're going to refer back to the first grade rule of treat others the way you want to be treated. If it might offend somebody and you're not sure, don't say it. If it might offend somebody, don't do it. Act on the side of caution, and usually things work out the right way. But I don't try to make it as a very well-known thing that we're addressing, because when I'm on the football field, I'm trying to coach football. When I'm on tennis courts, I'm trying to coach tennis. Is it something that is a life skill that we got to learn so that, when we're 30 years old, we're not making that mistake in our workplace? For sure. And it's just good to remind kids like, hey, I know you're a teenager. I know you're going to do some stupid things sometimes, but
Mm-hmm.
let's try to think before we act, so that we don't hurt others' feelings and we don't get ourselves in trouble and have to have consequences. So, not saying that I make a major point of it, but I do address the fact that, hey, this should not be an issue for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then in terms of like your culture goes as a coach, I mean, you've been doing this for a while. Do you feel like you have a pre-established culture that just tells them, or I should say offhand, like, hey, you should know this culture by now, and this is how we are. We don't have those problems here.
But you never assume, because
Mm-hmm.
every team you get is new.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might have the JV team where the kids who were freshmen are now sophomores. They know what to do. They know how we
Those
roll.
incoming
But the
graders.
new group,
Yeah.
one, the sophomores should be taking care of them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the freshmen, they got to learn. You can never assume that a high school kid knows the right stuff to do.
No, that makes sense at their age too.
Yeah, it's definitely reinforcement. It's something you got to do a couple times a season.
Oh, awesome. All right, well, Coach, just want to remind you, like, these responses, they are merely just pulling your responses, getting your perspective to help address broader issues that happen within sports in terms of sportsmanship, gamesmanship, diversity. And I think your perspective provides a lot of clarity. I think it helps answer a lot of questions. And in turn, just you simply participating in this is going to help not just myself, but any students who may take this course in the future or are currently taking this course can go see this, and they'll be able to appropriately adjust their philosophy if they think it's of use to them.
Glad to help.
Appreciate it, Coach. Take care.